It is just a huge honor for me today to be sitting in my own home with the CEO of 3M's Dental Division, Jim Ingebrand. Thank you so much for coming by the house today.
It's great to be here.
You've been with 3M. Well, let me read your bio.
Okay.
Jim Ingebrand is the president and general manager of 3M Oral Care Solutions Division. 3M Oral Care provides a broad range of award-winning, innovative dental and orthodontic products to clinicians around the world. Ingebrand brings more than 33 years of experience within 3M to his position. He started his career with the company in 1984. That was the year I started dental school.
There you go.
So we've been in dentistry at the same time. Working as a marketing analyst in the corporate marketing research department, he has since developed his experience through a series of U.S. and global assignments in 3M's medical, pharmaceutical, and dental businesses. He was named Vice President and General Manager of 3M ESPE in 2014 and assumed leadership of the combined 3M ESPE and 3M Unitek business in 2015. He holds a Bachelor of Science degree in biochemistry as well as a Master's in Business Administration degree from the University of Minnesota. Man, we're two twins. We started dentistry at the same time. We both got our MBA. And my gosh, so how many world assignments? Where have you lived around the world with 3M?
So I travel a lot, but my time overseas was in the UK. It's where I learned to speak this perfect English you're hearing. So about 4 years in the United Kingdom. But most of my assignments have been global, so I've been traveling quite a bit. I think over, last count, about 45 countries around the world that I've touched down in at one time or another.
45 countries around the world?
Yeah.
And you sound like me and Ryan. So we're twins in every category. But before I start this, I just want to be perfectly clear. This is an advertisement. No one pays me to go on the show. I invited him. He did not ask to come on my show. And I want to start with the international because dentistry is so different around the world.
Right.
I've lectured in that many countries. And I notice when you go to Europe, they every other year they have the big IDF meeting in Cologne, Germany, one of the coolest cities in the world. It was the farthest northern outreach of the Roman Empire. And at those conventions, all the dentists want to go talk to the owner of the company. And they're like, well, if you make this, I want to talk to you. But in the United States, they're like, well, I don't want to listen to that guy because he's selling. I want to go listen to an intermediate like Gordon Christian to tell me about your products. Whereas I have a very devout relationship with 3M because my sister is a cloister Carmelite monk in Lake Elmo.
Oh, okay.
And so every time I fly to Minneapolis, I got to go sit 4 hours and 1 minute with Pete Frechette Patterson, or I would go sit with Samutra. And those PhDs, their passion, and I mean, I can't tell you, and I want to remember some of the names because they gave me so much of their time. There was Sumitra Mitra, Stephen Austin, Joe Oxman, Brian Holmes, and I would tell them what I was hearing on the lecture circuit. You could just tell they were just like besides themselves because they said these guys are dentists and they don't understand biochemistry. So when you're talking to some lecturer who says, well, I'd rather have an acetone base or an alcohol base, you could just raise your hand and say, go to the board and draw out the molecular chemistry. Because Samutra, did I say that right? Samutra?
Yeah, Sumitra, I think is how she goes. She
would take me to a grease board for hours and just mesmerize me with organic chemistry.
Yeah.
And you instantly realize that in Cologne, for some reason, the dentists are smart enough to go to the company and listen to them because that's all they do. And then when the dentists here say, well, I don't trust listening to you because you sell this product, I'm going to go listen to an intermediator. It's like, well, dude, when a patient comes to you and you say you have 4 cavities, they got to trust you. I grew up with 5 sisters. Whenever my engine light comes on, I call it the idiot light because I dressed Barbie dolls for 12 years. The guy comes out here and he's telling about my transmission. It's all trust.
Sure.
And I like the European model of trusting manufacturers better than the dentists over here being so cynical,
Look, I think there's room for both, and I don't mean to just sound diplomatic, but I think you're right. In the U.S., people want to hear about clinical experience. They want to hear from their peers. They want to hear, I use this product in my practice. It worked well, or it was a bust, or whatever. We embrace that. We think that's critical. But we have a lot of passion, and guys like you mentioned, Samita, Joe Oxman, and the like. I mean, we're a material science company at the end of the day. I'm not a material scientist, but we have a lot of them. And
but you're a biochemist.
Well, so I do remember a few things about proteins and enzymes, but that was about 30-some years ago. But we love that stuff, and our stuff is good, and these guys love talking about it. I mean, so that's a treat for us when we get clinicians that's interested in the science behind the product. We just love it because we think really smart customers, smart clinicians will want to use our stuff because they understand what goes into it.
So what years were you in the UK?
So it was in the mid '90s, from about '92 to '96. So
they're kind of
a long time ago.
I want to stay macro for a while because it's a treat. A lot of dentists haven't seen a dental office in 50 countries. They seem to be in a lot of turmoil going from the NHS government dentistry to private practice. So when I got out of school 30 years ago, I think they had 20,000 dentists and they all were in the NHS. Now I think they're up to about 28,000 dentists, and about 6,000 of them are completely outside the NHS. What is it? What is it like?
Yeah, I think it's a real mix in the UK. I was there just late last year, visited some offices, and what we're seeing there now, aside from and we focus on both, but we spend probably a little bit more time in the private segment. A lot of group practices growing in the UK, so a lot of the big DSOs and the groups growing there. But it's a good market. I think it's like a lot of both developing and developed markets. I mean, dental is people are recognizing the importance of it for overall health for sure, recognizing the aesthetic part if they want to be able to take advantage of that. So it's pretty good. But we are seeing a lot of changes in markets everywhere. But one of the things I think that makes dental great and what I like about it is that even though it feels, especially in dental now, that it's changing quickly, it's still things kind of occur over a broad arc, as you say, and it doesn't. We don't have that total disruption that we see in some other industries.
What I thought was most interesting is that in the 20 richest countries, you have 5 physicians and 1 dentist, and then the poorest of the poor country, it's reverse. Because if you're in a very, very poor country, you're not going to get an MRI and a CAT scan and be treated for colon cancer. But when your tooth breaks and it hurts and you can't eat, it's just not going away. I hear so many different numbers of how many dentists there were. I remember one time I was having breakfast with the president of the Chinese Dental Association. I said, how many dentists do you have? And he said the same answer as the president of the Indian Dental Association. He goes, what's a dentist? He goes, did you go to a 5-year program, a 4-year, a 3-year? What if you're out in a village and there's 2,000 people, no running water, electricity, but your full-time job is sitting there making dentures? Are you a dentist? And he also said that the populations for China and India in reality were when they say they have 1,300,000,000, it's plus or minus several million. So how many dentists do you think? How many dentists do you think are in the world, and what do you think the global dollar amount is?
Oh gosh, I'm not trying to I don't know that number, honestly.
Okay, I love stats and statistics, but I'm guessing 2 million dentists around the world.
Could be. I think the big thing is what you said in India and China and some of these countries. They're not credentialed the same way, right? It's the family business you learn on the one end. On the other hand, and you've been there, beautiful dental schools, beautiful dental offices, as good as you see anywhere in the world. And I think that's what makes some of these countries so interesting to go and visit, because the top tier of dentistry kind of looks the same everywhere, right? I mean, there's a standard, and it's great. I wouldn't feel bad about going there myself for any of these places. But when you get down into some of the remote areas or the mid or lower tier, what we would call dentistry, it gets kind of interesting, a little more exotic. And
the most exotic doctor I ever saw was in Brazil. I told these dentists, I love it because when I go lecture, I'm picked up by dentists, and I tell them I don't want to stay in a hotel. I can stay in a hotel in the United States. I want to stay in your house. I find it very interesting. And
that's awesome.
A couple of interesting things around it is, like, I'll be lecturing Saturday at AT Still. Every dental school I lecture in, I say, raise your hand if you have a family member, a mom, dad, uncle in dentistry. A third of the hands go up. And it's the same in every occupation: goat herding, wheat farming. All my friends, when I grew up in Wichita, that went into wheat farming, well, they went to their, grandma passed away, so it's a very family deal. I've spent the night in a house in San Paulo that had 35 dentists in their family tree, and almost all of them lived in the same house.
Wow.
Same thing in New Delhi. I think that one was like 27 or 28, and all but like 3 lived in this one house. I just love it. It's so cool. But so let's bring it back down to clinical dentistry. What are you most passionate about? What is 3M Dental doing that's got you waking up with a kid?
You know, we have kind of a mission, vision, whatever you want to call that, called lifelong oral health for everyone, and that's really what we see. That's in 6 words. I think that encapsulates our passion as good as anything, and I like to think it's very aspirational. On the one hand, I mean, we're not there yet, but when I think about it, we are really trying to work across all of those. So when you start thinking about lifelong, we recognize that it's not just for kids, right? It's not just pediatric dentistry for us, but we have products that are for that segment, for young adults, for adults, and even old timers. So we think about what are the needs of each of those, and you know, if we get it to time, talk a little bit about some of the fun things going on in each of those. So that's the lifelong piece. The oral health piece is really great to see that starting to get recognized. Certainly in the U.S. and elsewhere. I'm not the first to say this, I know by a long shot, but this link between good oral health and overall health, we're just chuffed to see that get recognized. 3M, we're also a healthcare company. I mean, we're a $6 billion healthcare company with a big dental business. So
how big's the dental business of that $6 billion?
It's over $1 billion, about $1.3 billion. So we see that great link between oral health and overall health, and then for everyone, we recognize, you know, we're global and we're doing what we can to make I think dental easier and more accessible, because just access to care everywhere is an issue, certainly in the U.S. but around the world. So you know, we're also living that with some of the philanthropic things we do with some of the great organizations out there. So lifelong oral health for everyone is really a theme that I think channels and speaks to the passion and the energy of the dental business.
You know, it's kind of interesting how one of my favorite Pulitzer Prize winning books of all time was The Rise and Fall of the American Healthcare System by Paul Starr. And it was so interesting how in 1858 the dentists branched off because they were building they wanted a chair and the physicians wanted a bed. And there goes the schism. You know, I mean, I've been told so many times, well, you're not a real doctor. And I'm like, well, either it's Dr. Dre, Dr. Pepper, Dr. Seuss. But it's funny, if I would have became a dermatologist and popped a pimple, or an eye doctor and found your glasses, I'm a real doctor. Sure. But now you see them merging back. When I go into these dental schools, you know, you have the dental school, the med school, same teachers, same faculty, but it's really coming back together. And I find it shocking that that we're just waking up to the fact that, you know, gum disease, which would be the surface area of your hand. If your hand was just oozing blood, you'd show someone. Right, right. But I think it's really coming back together. This oral systemic link, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's the right focus. Personally, I think that makes a ton of sense. And I think just recognizing the job of dentistry broadly is not just, you know, to fix things when they go wrong, which you obviously do, but keep people healthy. I mean, keep a healthy.
So you guys have done some huge merger and acquisitions when you bought ESPE out of Germany. Yep. You still research in Germany, research in Minnesota, and which ones are smarter?
Yeah, I like how I'm going to answer that question. But to the first question, absolutely. I mean, ESPE, that was a great acquisition. One of the best ever, really, in the history of 3M, certainly in my opinion, and great for our dental business. We took two great organizations with, you know, passion for science, and we're able to combine those two. And we still have a big headquarters in a little town in Seefeld, Germany, in Bavaria. So we do manufacturing there. We do have a big laboratory there as well. We do some of our global, you know, both in Germany, and some of the global business teams are located there. And then we have the same in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Well, I'm going to weigh in on which ones are smarter.
Sure.
Because my dad, when we went on vacations, he liked to go to all the amusement parks, the Six Flags and Disneylands. But when we go to like a Six Flag in some city, he would call and find places that we could tour. So we went to Coors Beer. When we bought our family station wagon, we drove to Detroit and watched it go through the line where they pulled us on a golf cart deal. He just loved to watch stuff even before I was in dentistry, I knew that Coors made their own glass bottles and actually were in the dental porcelain business back when Adolf Coors was still alive, because he didn't like to outsource anything.
Right.
But when you go to German, Scandinavian, Liechtenstein dental manufacturing companies, I mean, wow, they are just intense. They're, it's just totally intense, and they don't have a marketing department. And then you go to like an American manufacturing company, and they don't even have a PhD, but they got a 60-person call center with a thermostat dialing for dollars. Yeah. So I always say, Germans, they make it so good it sells themselves. And the Americans can sell so good, they can sell you junk all day long that you don't even need. And then China makes it so low cost. Yeah. And that those three camps need to merge. Yeah. Other countries need to be more low cost like China. Everyone needs to make it as good as Germans. And everyone needs to sell better like Americans. Those are the three.
Yeah, you'd have the perfect organization if you combine all those, maybe. Huh?
You would. So when you're making a product, what makes a great product? How long does it take to come out with a new product?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to say, it's all organized, and it starts with great market research, and you bring the need back to the laboratory, and you develop it on a timeline, and out it pops.
Like an assembly line.
Yeah, the truth is that almost never happens. It just, not that we don't try from time to time, it just doesn't happen. And especially at a company like 3M, which is really all about the technology. So think about concentric circles. The technology sits in the middle of the company. What we do with that technology, it goes all over the place, which is why 3M as a company broadly is in so many different businesses. So, yes, the marketing group has needs and says, hey, that we think a customer would like this or that. But what happens is these guys, the very clever folks in the lab, like you mentioned, people like Samita and Joe and many more, whether in Seefeld or in St. Paul, they come up with these great ideas because they not only know the technology, they understand the business. They understand the real needs because they don't stay in the laboratory. Guys like Joe, they're out all over the world talking to dentists all day long. So they come out and they say, hey, we should do this, we should do that. And eventually we get a coalition of the willing, and they convince,
a coalition of the willing,
and we'll start working on it, and it'll get a critical mass, and we'll say, okay, this makes sense. Let's go with this product. And then we do a lot of work with outside folks to try to get input early on. We have technical advisory panels. We have dentists and orthodontists on staff. We have hygienists on staff that kind of keep us from going too far off the rails. And then we do enter at that point a formal product development cycle because we are in a regulated business and we have to follow our SOPs and all the rest, make sure we go through the right clinical development, they
don't know what an SOP
regulatory is. Approval stands for standard operating practices. So we just follow the rules that we need to follow throughout that development process. I think a typical, if I can use that term, even product development life cycle in a maybe a dental consumable product, it could be anywhere from maybe 18 months on the absolute short end of things to 5 years or even longer for things that tend to be more pharmaceutical-like.
So does this, have you been following the people eating Tide Pods?
I've heard of it. I've not imitated them, you'll be happy to know.
It's a serious thing. Are you going to go back and meet with your product development people and say, we can't make this product look edible? We don't want this bottle of resin to look like something you would eat with a chocolate. You say, especially because your factory is in Brewer, Germany, and they're more known for chocolate than they are dental materials.
Yeah, that hasn't been an issue.
It hasn't been an issue yet,
but I'll keep that in mind.
Right on, dentist. My homies don't eat Tide Pods. That makes me even more proud to be a dentist.
No, that's right. Yeah.
So, back to macro. Do you see dentists restoring dentistry more one way, like say with glass ionomer versus in another country more resin? Do you see, is it pretty homogeneous at the top, or is there continent?
I don't see a lot of big differences. You know, things like using a bulk fill, more popular some places than another, that sort of stuff. I mean, that's kind of, you know, I guess esoteric, minutia sort of stuff. Broadly, what makes this business so fun, from my standpoint, it is broadly similar, right? Especially at top-tier dentistry, whether it's, you know, done in Japan, whether it's done in Australia, whether it's done in Brazil, U.S., Canada, wherever, Europe, wherever you want to go. It is pretty similar, I find, at least at my level. You know, I'm not.
I actually have found top-tier best dentistry in 50 countries. You can go to. You can go off the beaten path so far because of the smartphone. Because they put, you know, when you and I got out of school, it was the IBM mainframe. Then there's this new company making microcomputers with Microsoft software. And now they got that mainframe in your hand. I mean, I've gone to villages where dentists say, yeah, I've watched YouTube videos for 1,000 hours, you know, and so the cost of the best perfect information is literally free.
Right.
I mean, we have 250,000 dentists on Dental Town, and we make all of our 400 online CE courses free for dental students around the world. And a dentist, I mean, information, it's talk about dental information being faster, easier, higher quality, lower in cost. Hell, it's free.
Yeah.
And you just started the 3M Healthcare Academy.
That's right. So similar, just what you said. There's so much information out there. There's so many ways to learn. We had a similar situation where we had lectures, our own, by other folks, other clinicians around the world. We put support together for our products. People, you know, give me 30 seconds on how to use this product correctly, that sort of stuff. And we just basically took all that, put that all in one place, and that's our 3M Healthcare Academy. So clinicians can go in there, they can check it out, they can register, they can keep track of their some of their courses that they want to take. And of course, this is still early days, and we'll continue to.
So is this all online then?
Yes.
It's all, and how long's it been out?
I think less than a year, actually. Not really all that long.
And how's it going?
Good. I think, you know, like I said, it's early days for us. I mean, folks are using it, and we use it ourselves, right? I bring in a new employee and who maybe doesn't have the background in the dental business, helps them get up to speed more quickly. You know, it's like anything. It's just making sure people understand and know about it.
When we got out of school, it was all distributors. And now in China, they have the largest Amazon, the Alibaba.
Yeah, Alibaba.
And in the United States, we have Amazon. And all these millennials are buying everything on Amazon in the United States and Canada, and they're buying it on Alibaba. When will 3M sell direct on those two platforms?
Well, I think I don't know. I'm not going to answer for Alibaba because it's just because I'm not sure, and I don't want to misspeak. For Amazon, we do have a few products out there. Well, first of all, 3M has a lot of products out there on Amazon. So different divisions of the company use it a lot or a little. From a dental standpoint, we have only about 7 products that we sell directly through Amazon, and these are take-home products, things like our ClinPro tooth cream.
So more B2C stuff.
Absolutely.
So business to consumer, not business to dentist.
That's right.
So what are your consumer things on Amazon?
You know, things 3M consumer products, things like, you know, Post-it notes and Scotch tape and sandpaper and just the consumer
but in
product.
dental.
In dental, it's really ClinPro tooth cream and a couple other, I think Theramints, which is a little xylitol mint, and a few products like that. Very very small amount, and only, like I said, only products that a consumer would want to pick up.
And like any predictions? I mean, do you think? I mean, we've both been in this game 30 years, right?
Yeah.
How long? 84 to 34 years.
34 years coming up.
34 years.
Yeah.
My God, are we getting old?
No, absolutely not. We're just.
Do you have any grandchildren yet?
No, I've got 2 daughters. They're both married. We're just kind of in that waiting zone and trying not to be obnoxious about saying, okay, let's go.
You're not sending them books on how to make grandchildren?
No, I hope they have that figured out.
But what's your prediction? I mean, obviously, if your granddaughter,
right?
I mean, it's obviously someday.
Sure.
So
here's my thoughts on that.
Yeah,
I mean, Amazon's obviously made some noise. They want to come into this market. We've talked to them. I'm sure every one of my other suppliers in there are having those conversations. I'm waiting for the market. I'm waiting for clinicians to say, 3M, I want you to put your stuff on Amazon. I mean, we haven't had that conversation. And quite frankly, from my perspective, our channel partners that we work with today really do a good job, right? They do more than just, put products in people's hands. They support the offices. They troubleshoot. They sell equipment. They service equipment. They do a lot. Now, that said, do I think Amazon's going to figure this out and come in and get a share? I think so, right? I'm not going to bet against Amazon. They've been pretty darn good at whatever they're doing, but I think they really have to bring a real value proposition to the table.
Well, it's so funny because, they say the more things change, the more they stay the same. So let's go back to 1998 when I'm sitting here watching them talk about ESPN football, and I'm like, my God, I want to be talking about root canals. And I hired Ken Scott the next day, and he's still there. He and his team of 5 have written 500,000 lines of code. But when we started that, all these people, the deal is when you start a new business, how you got to monetize it. And everybody said, we'll sell supplies. So we started programming a deal to sell the supplies, but as all the townies logged on, we had the same mission. I started Dental Town so that no dentist will ever have to practice solo again. And so that was in the digital world. In the physical world, this dentist saying, dude, I'm in Salina, Kansas, and when that rep's my only connection to the outside world. And it's amazing. They value her because, gossip, people, and they're like, well, you're talking about all these different endophiles. What's my favorite endodontist over there, Brad Gettleman? What's he use? And that guy over there, he's a big cosmetic guy. He's with the AACD. What impression material does he use? And not so much that the rep's going to come in and explain 60,000 SKUs, but she's their only connection to the outside world. And you're saying that you're still sensing that in the market, that they're not saying, no, I don't. I just want to get rid of my rep and go all digital.
There's a couple of different things. So we did a little bit of primary market research. Which is a fancy way of saying we talked to some dentists and said, "What are you guys? What are you going to do? Are you going to start buying from Amazon?" And a small group of that, small proportion, said, "Sure, I'll buy gloves or I'll buy masks or I'll buy cleaning materials and things." But again, I'm not discounting Amazon. I think they'll figure this out. I think they'll figure out a way to add value. And to your point, it's getting easier and easier for anybody, whether you want to get the gossip factor or just clinical information. There's a lot of different ways to get at it. So I think that will come, but it's not an instant on.
So it's not going to be like a dam breaks and all of a sudden it all moves online. It never works like that.
I don't think so.
Slow, incremental.
Yeah.
I want to ask you the most controversial question in your business, because this is Dentistry Uncensored. There's more definitions of gray market dental supplies than there are continents on Earth. And the younger ones, you got to remember on podcasts, old guys like me are on desktops. I always say, send me an email, howard@dentaltown.com. Tell me who you are, how old you are, where you live, what country. It's 25% of them are in dental school, and all the rest are under 30. I get like one email a week that says, dude, I'm as old as you. And then I'll email back, how did you get turned? All my dentist friends in Ahwatukee, 100% of them that are 50 and over have never listened to a podcast one time in their life. So it's a millennial thing. They don't know what gray market means. And if they ask someone, they're going to get 17 different definitions. So what is gray market and why does it concern people?
Yeah, okay. So great question. So a gray market is just product that's meant to be sold in one market and ends up in another at a broad category. So a product that was regulated for, manufactured for, labeled for, Vietnam or Thailand, or I don't know, pick on anybody in particular, China for that matter, India, ends up in another market. Probably it could be South Africa, it could be Europe, could be the U.S. Now, why should that concern anybody? It should concern you because, one, the product you end up with in the other market, it may not be registered properly. It may not be approved from a regulatory standpoint. Secondly, the supply chain hasn't been controlled, right? So you don't know if that product sat out on a runway in Dubai for 2 weeks at 110 degrees Fahrenheit, baking. You just don't know much about that product. It hasn't been controlled. So even though it might be cheap, the quality of that product could be suspect. And honestly, None of that concerns me as much as the final point I make, which is you don't know if that product is counterfeit. So that's what keeps me up at night relative to the gray market. It's not that, geez, the product went from here to there, and maybe it's okay. But we do see a lot of counterfeit product, and that's when things get dangerous because you don't really know
where it would look like it was made by 3M, but it clearly wasn't.
Absolutely, and
you see that
people are good at counterfeiting products. So once in a while, we'll get a product complaint. Hey 3M, this adhesive, this composite, this cement, whatever it is not working properly. Did you guys change the formulation? Did you mess with this product? And whenever we get a complaint, by the way, we love it when people send the samples back because then we can do an investigation. And every once in a while we go, look at this, and sometimes it's really hard to tell. Sometimes it's very hard to tell unless you do the analytical testing on the product to say that's not our stuff. That's counterfeit product. Well,
it's funny that you mentioned sat on an airport in Dubai for 2 weeks because I live in Phoenix. Mm-hmm. So for 30 years, it gets to 118. Twice I was going to a lecture and the Sky Harbor closed down because
last summer.
Once it gets to 126, these Boeings don't have enough lift.
Right.
So they either got to start shedding weight or just wait till it cools down. But yeah, in so many products in my 30 years where they say, well, you know what, when that's shipped in UPS and it's 118 degrees outside, it's 150 in the UPS, they basically baked it before it got there. I'm not talking about just dental materials. I'm talking about
everything.
Everything.
No, exactly.
So I could see controlling the temperature and the humidity. It would be huge.
So I get, there's certainly some possible to save some money if you're willing to buy gray market product, but you are rolling the dice. It has to be said, just from a quality standpoint. And what are you putting in your patient's mouth? To me, that's a little unsettling.
So. Let's go to macro of the United States. When you and I got in this business in '84, when I started dental school, when I was a freshman in dental gardens, I call it dental kindergarten, looking back at those years. You remember when these first DSOs started, like Orthodontic Centers of America, made it on the New York Stock Exchange, had $1 billion valuation, then imploded. Mm-hmm. Now they're back. There's some people in the DSO market that's saying that what's going to happen to dentistry is going to happen to like what happened to pharmacists. When you and I were little, every pharmacist owned their own building. Yeah. Now they're all employees. How do you see it?
If you'd asked me a few years ago, so I've changed my view a little bit on this.
And that's a sign of a wise person changer. I hate it when they always nail politicians. Wait a minute, you changed your mind. Yeah. Do you want someone that's incapable of changing their mind running the country?
Exactly. Yeah.
So views change. They evolve.
So I think they have their place for sure. I've come down a little bit from how much. Speaking just for the U.S. for the moment, and I'll add a comment sort of internationally, but I think a few years ago the predictions were it'll be 90%. It's gonna by 2020 it's gonna be 90%, or I'll be working for somebody else. It's that sort of thing. Seeing that, I think, slow down. From a business standpoint, from 3M standpoint, it's still growing, still a big segment, and whether you're talking about the big guys or the mid markets, they tend to be growing faster. But I think the rate of that growth seems to be a little bit more moderate. And, I think there's still, from what I've seen, some of the secondhand, but some of the survey results is people are still going into dentistry because they want to ultimately, even if they start at a DSO or a group, they want their own practice. They want that control. So one of the reasons why they go into this space. So I think as long as that's a driver, that's always going to be a bit of a moderating effect. So whether, you can argue whether at 20%, 30%, whatever it is today, I think it'll.
What do you think it is today? Depends on the definition.
Yeah,
it's a group practice.
So that's why I'd say in that sort of 20 to 30%.
Yeah, probably
range.
20% big box in more than one state, and then another 10% regional in one state. But here's my deal. So obviously you're publicly traded, so you got to be aware of Wall Street.
Totally.
And you talk to these analysts. Don't you think it's a red flag that not one of these DSOs has gone public or even could go public? None of them could. Look at crazy companies like Snapchat. The most insignificant companies can go public. There's Russell has 2,000.
Right.
Why do you think none of these guys can go public?
You'd have to ask them. I don't know.
Well, you know more than I do,
but
I'm not publicly traded.
But I look at it must be one of two things, right? So if you're putting groups together, you want to get efficiency of some sort, right? Otherwise, there's no point. I mean, 1 + 1 = 2 doesn't make any sense. 1 + 1 = 3. Now you're talking about something. So I think there's got to be one or two things happening. One is the whole cost basis has to be lower because you're more efficient in how you operate, how you do purchasing, how you do training. All the costs of a dental office have to come down. Or you need to generate more patients, right? That's the top line is what there's got to be something about walking into a dental office that's part of a big DSO that says, hey, I'm going to attract more patients for one reason or another. It might be they've been better advertising. It might be they have the latest equipment, whatever it is. So, if those things are both being moderated for whatever reason, the dental market in the U.S., despite the improving economy, is still a little bit dampened. I don't understand why. I wished everybody would go to the dentist. But I think that must be, maybe just putting a little bit damper on it, or some of the efficiencies are not manifesting themselves quite as fast as maybe the business plans originally anticipated. I think certainly the efficiency piece seems to me to make some sense. That would come over time. That there would be some cost efficiencies from running a group versus an individual practice. But I guess we'll see.
I mean, they're not impressing me to make think that they're scales of economy, because there's only so much of dentistry in finding a great location and a great website and great marketing and great advertising, or finding a cheaper lab or a cheaper supply. But the product is the dentist. Mm-hmm. And the dentist-human relationship. And I see two things that frighten me. Number one, nobody's getting an A. There's no dentist getting an A because they still need new patients 40 years later. They'll be in a town of 5,000, and they've got 20 new patients a month for 40 years. And I say, what do you need? I need new patients. Dude, you've gone through everyone in the county twice. Yeah. So and dentists are still they want to advertise to get a new patient. I say, take all your money and invest it in the new patient experience and the existing patient experience. If you took all that money and tried to keep a customer for life, it's far more valuable than keeping getting new patients. And then so none of the patients. So how many dentists have you met that says, man, we stopped taking new patients 10 years ago? Mm-hmm. How many dentists have you met that said that?
None.
It'd be a unicorn flying a toothbrush. Yeah. And then we go to the associateship jobs. And it's not just dentistry, but the big stock market bubble today is FANG, Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, Google, Microsoft. Their millennials only stay with them 1 to 2 years and they quit. And then you go at any associate jobs, it doesn't matter if it's at the big ones like Heartland and Pacific Dental or just a regular dentist who has an associate. These associates don't keep their jobs 2 years. So they're already saying, man, after you go to 8 years of college, I don't want to work for you. Mm-hmm. Because you can't get two dentists on earth to agree about that today is Thursday. I mean, they'll just
that's true.
They don't agree, and we might get along real good.
Yeah.
And I might agree with your materials that you use from 3M. Yeah. But then he wants to buy a CAD cam, and I want to buy a laser, and I want my lab man up the street who's made 10,000 crowns for 30 years to make the crown. He says, no, I want my dental assistant who's never made a crown in her life to buy a CAD cam. And gosh, half the marriages fail. Mm-hmm. And that's with love and children and holidays. You really think marrying a dentist is a good idea? I mean, so I don't see any data groups. The patients aren't staying with their dentist for life. The associate dentists are flipping in 1 and 2 years, and it's the same human. I mean, you all hear the stories about how Google and Facebook tries to make the coolest work environment with foosball and beanbag chairs and all this stuff, and they're the number one. Right. Their employees stay with them. Their millennials stay with them just 2 years. Yeah. And Amazon is the worst. They're just at 1 year for millennials. Wow. So to me, I sit back and say, let's just talk about this anthropologically. Why do kids leave their home? They don't want to listen to mom and dad. Mm-hmm. And then when they go get a job, they don't want to listen to a boss. They want their own house, their own dental office. They're humans. And how many humans like checks and balances?
Yeah. No, we like freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah. We want to do what we want.
So I want to ask another macro question, how it affects dental supplies and how it affects us. When I got out of school and I would send Indemnity Insurance Delta a bill, I would just say I did a crown, $1,000, root canal, $1,000. 30 years later, they don't care what my price is. They're sending me the price, and it's called a PPO. It's funny how dentists say they don't take PPOs. I'll say, really, you don't take Delta? Oh, I take Delta. Well, dude, Delta's a PPO. Yeah. And Delta's on their website says 97% of all the dentists in America take Delta. So now my fees now are 40% less than 30 years ago. So when you're making a product, if your product takes 2 minutes to set up,
right,
your product is twice as expensive as the product that's a minute, because the bottom line is this, is if your prices are 40% lower, the only way that you make it is you go 40% faster. Yeah. I can't, so back in the day, everybody used to schedule an hour and a half for a crown. Hell, you got $1,000. You weren't even thinking of the clock. Yeah. But now that you're getting 600, you're like, well, gosh, if I schedule an hour and a half, you know how much more profit there'd be if I could do that in an hour?
For sure, yeah.
Or 45 minutes?
Totally, yeah.
So bulk fills another one. Right. I mean, when composites started, you were curing a little layer, another layer, another layer. It was like playing. It was like making a cake.
Right.
Now you're sitting there thinking, I'm only getting $100 for this filling. I just want one squirt, cure, go. Get it so done. Is the changing fee structure, changing product evolution?
Totally. We were talking about thinking on new products earlier, and one of the things we really think about very explicitly, not just as an afterthought, we think about clinical success, professional success, and personal success from the dentist standpoint, right? So anything we have to come up with, and not just from a product standpoint, but interacting with clinicians as an organization, we know our stuff has to work clinically, right? So we talked about that. We have to test the bejeebers out of it. We do tox testing, clinical testing. We follow the right regulatory paths. We do all that stuff. So I hope if somebody picks up a product that says 3M on it, they know this product is going to work clinically. But then we talk about professional success, and that gets at what you're saying. It's like we're going to be a good partner for a clinician, for a dentist, orthodontist, hygienist, whatever it is, if we help you run a successful business. I mean, that's what we really mean by professional success. And that means a couple things. It means how do we do things faster, more efficiently, more pleasant for the patient, making sure, a second go-around isn't needed, fewer steps in a process, a more robust process, easier to do properly, harder to screw up, whatever it is. So, bulk fill is sort of an obvious example where, okay, you get the same results and it's easier. But that product also has to be kind of foolproof, if you will, right? It has to work well. It has to work well every time. And so whenever we look at a procedure and we try to think about procedure approaches as opposed to, well, we're just talking about this cement or we're talking about whatever this product is, what's the procedure that's being used? What are all the steps in that procedure? And what can we do to bring value across all of those things I mentioned, either eliminating steps or making something faster or making it more robust or whatever it is, because we recognize that there's a lot of pressure. And when we really hit both of those parameters of a really good product that works great clinically, but also adds value professionally in the sense, you'll see an economic benefit from using this product, we're ahead of the game. And then the last one is kind of the soft one, and is personal success, right? So what's a product that you feel good about using in your practice? Maybe because it's easier on the patient, maybe it's just a pleasure to use, maybe it's the ergonomics, or maybe it just helps you feel good about what you're doing because there's such great outcomes for the patient. I mean, so we think about that. If we can nail all three of those, clinical, professional, and personal success, then we have a winner. I'm gonna play devil's advocate. I'm gonna say 30 years ago, dental materials were better than today, which is like, well, you can't say that. I'll say it because 30 years ago, all my restorations are gold, and back then all the fillings were silver, and they were half mercury, which you'll never find in a multivitamin,
And the other half was silver, zinc, copper, and tin. And the silver, like silver diamine fluoride, antibacterial. Stannous fluoride is tin. Everything in amalgam was antibacterial. And 80% of our patients, Bubba ain't ever going to brush or floss his teeth. I mean, and so then we did this oral cosmetic revolution, and we went from silver to beautiful white. But now I think it's missing an active ingredient, because with the amalgam, I had mercury, silver, zinc, copper, tin, killing microorganisms and fungus. And do you think that one day we'll have a bulk fill? I'll say it another way. It seems like dentistry is into making these beautiful barns. And we talk about how great the barn is, but at the end of the day, it's going to be eaten by termites within 10 years. And then you come back and say, well, we used to make these silver mercury barns, and the termites couldn't eat them. Do you think 3M, is it even on the wish list, the dream list of 3M to have something that has the antibacterial properties that amalgam used to have into a tooth-colored composite?
I'll spin it a little differently, because I'm not going to use antibacterial.
Okay.
But so I'll talk about a couple of things. Back to kind of the prevention stuff, right? How do we keep people healthy? Some of the work we're doing that I think is the most interesting is around controlling biofilms and managing biofilms. So rather than, trying to go in and wipe out with antimicrobial, antibiotic type materials that you can't really do anyways. You can't sterilize the oral cavity. But how do you control that biofilm to keep that oral cavity and the kind of pH and other parameters that really help keep teeth healthy, right? So we're doing some interesting work in that area. So I'm excited about that. I'm not the expert in it. The folks back in the laboratory are, but I think to me that's a direction that we like as a way that's going. The other place,
I want to podcast the lead guy on that department.
You're gonna.
I want to.
Okay, we'll talk to Joe Oxman about that. He's one of our experts in that.
Well, he will listen to me, but he might listen to you. I'm pretty sure you're his boss.
All right.
But yeah, okay.
So that's an interesting sort of whole research area for us, and again at 3M broadly, because we have a whole business called our infection prevention division in the hospital. That worries about biofilms and cleaning biofilms and understanding biofilms.
Do you know how many people die in a hospital each year from something not related to their illness?
Yeah, over 100,000 just in the U.S.
The Centers for Disease Control says 200,000.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, I had a little girl in my office the other day, and she had MRSA all over her leg, and her mom said, well, we went and visited Grandma in the hospital, and she was crawling around on the floor, and now she has these patches the size of volleyballs, and then you look at the CDC, you know how, what just drives me crazy? Yeah. So if I go, because I have a patient that works at Intel that can take me into areas that you're not supposed to go to, you drive there, you go in a room, you take off all your clothes, you take a shower, you put on a spacesuit, and then you go work on chips. And then you go across the street, the cardiovascular surgeon pulls up in his car, walks in his tennis shoes all the way, then washes his arms for an hour, and then does the surgery. And in Intel, the room is filtering the air to less than 1 part per billion. And then you look at the CDC, it says, well, what's the number one cause of hip failure? Well, they get a hip transplant, and then they get a staph infection. Right. It's like a staph infection. He's wearing the tennis shoes he left home in, and you have all these people coughing and sneezing and wheezing while Grandpa's filleted open. I mean, it's like, how come this is higher quality than getting surgery at Chandler Regional Hospital?
There you go. It's a great question.
So we got a long way to go in healthcare. So you're saying your 3M's, this biofilm, it's not only going to apply to fillings getting attacked by biofilm, but surfaces in hospitals.
Right. We want to understand at a fundamental level, how to keep teeth healthy, right, and the oral cavity healthy, and part of that is just understanding how to control and actually train biofilms to sort of behave in certain ways. So that's a whole area of research. The other thing, and your listeners might roll their eyes, the term bioactive, and I don't know what it means. Nobody's really defined it, but we do have also some really interesting work in that area. Back to more directly to what you're saying. Fillings, materials that can elute fluoride and other things to just kind of keep a filling intact, keep it
here's
healthy.
my notes. Here's my 3 wishes. When
Okay.
you go back to 3M, I want you to walk back in there to your amazing R&D department, which and tell them again, thank you them so much. They've never turned me down. They never told me to leave, and I sat there for 4 hours and 1 minute because that's what the IRS says makes it a business trip. And but the 3 wishes that I wish tooth colored restoration could be antibacterial.
Okay.
You said you don't like that word. That's cool. The other one is, and I got 2 more, and the second one is the fastest growing population of the United States is women over 100. Second fastest is women over 90. Third fastest is women over 80. The 4,000-pound gorilla in the room is that 5% of Americans spend the rest of their life in a nursing home. Mm-hmm. And when you check into a nursing home, they get a baby bottle tooth, they get a root surface carie, 1 lesion per month. Mm-hmm. They come back to me sometimes. All this lifelong dentistry I did turned to mush in 18 months. And so I have 10 times gone to a nursing home and asked if I could just hang out. I'm a dentist because I want to do this. So they have a wing, and they have this little bitty 5'2", 40-year-old LPN, and she's in charge of 20 people. Do you really think she's going to brush and floss all their teeth and give them their meds and shower and bathe? And then she fell down. And they say they call the fire department at least 1 time per night because big old fat grandpa falls down in the shower, and the little 5'2" nurse can't pick up dead weight. And a lot of times these firemen, I've seen several calls where, it takes 4 or 5 guys to pick up some wet guy in the shower and put him back in the bed. But so root surface decay, what could you make for that LP? It's obviously got to be a mouthwash. It's got to be a swish.
Oil rinse,
Yeah. What could she actually realistically do? Because she's not going to get in there and brush and floss for 2 minutes morning and night.
So that is an area that, back to this biofilm control type initiative, technically, that I'm talking about, that's something we recognize as a huge issue. It's tragic, really.
But we're lucky. We're men.
Right. We won't live that
almost
long.
never see a man in a nursing home. You go to any nursing home in Phoenix, there's 100 women and 1 man named Lucky.
Yeah, that's right.
Don't worry. We'll die of heart disease long before the nursing home.
Yeah, that's probably true, sadly. Yeah. But no, so I recognize that that's a huge unmet need, because something, and even before you get to the nursing home, it gets hard for people. The movement gets impaired. It's hard to brush, even brushing your teeth,
and Alzheimer's,
flossing,
dementia,
all kinds of things. So something that makes that easy, and then back to the connection with hospitals, similar kinds of things with intubated patients on a respirator. We know that good oral hygiene is one of the preventive steps to keep people from getting ventilator-associated pneumonia, for example, in a hospital. They know if they can keep that oral cavity clean, that's one of the markers that help reduce that effect. So it's a big need in an area of our research.
Okay, my 3rd and last wish. I hope you're writing all these down.
I'm going to just listen to the podcast. I'll get them down later.
Gosh, it'd be nice to have a reversible cement. It'd be nice to cement a crown or an implant or whatever, then zap it with a laser or heat it up, or, will cements ever be reversible? Go from hard back to soft, then make them go hard again?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that one. You stumped me with that one. It would be good.
Oh, it'd be a dream. You got this crown on and you're doing an exam and you're not sure if there's decay underneath it, and let's say you do something to it, a radio wave, a laser, whatever, then just take it off, look at it, re-cement it, an implant on a crown. A reversible cement would be
awesome.
And if I could have that by Christmas in my stocking.
Sure.
And don't make it look too pretty, because I don't want to eat it. And there'll be another Tide Bod casualty.
I won't put it in a detergent pod.
Another change that we talked about, because it's so fun to talk to someone as old and senile as me, 34 years into this. When we were little, there were 100 dental suppliers. Now there's like 2 or 3 that probably do 2/3 of all the business. Did that change anything? Did that change your world?
Well, yes and no. For sure, the big guys are getting bigger. Dentsply Sirona merged and doubled the size of their company. Calvo Kerr and Danaher continue to do acquisitions, and they picked up Nobel a few years ago, so they're getting bigger. We mentioned ESPE a while back, so we're getting bigger. But the thing about what I've noticed in the dental business and dental supplies in particular, every time there's consolidation at the top, this is such a creative group. There's always a new widget, a new product coming up. I mean, it's amazing. You go to some of the big trade shows, and especially IDS in Cologne every other year. I mean, it's kind of an inventor's paradise, right? I mean, almost anybody with a good idea, you don't need to invest in a factory. You can kind of come up with a new widget or a new technique or a new instrument or a new something, without a ton of capital. And so there just tends to be a lot of innovation, I think, in this business.
Ryan, your mom used to get so mad at me because so many times on our anniversary, let's go someplace fun on our anniversary. And I say, okay, let's go to Cologne, Germany. She's like, really? You're going to take me to a dental convention? Because what's so cool about it is there's dentists there from every single country on earth. And I've known a lot of dentists that made a lot of money there because there'll be some great product and the guy is just sells it in, say, Korea.
Oh, totally.
And he gets a distribution rights for it for America. Yeah. But I just want to say this. For 5 days, it's open. And if you just slowly walk by the booths for 5 days, you could not walk by all the booths.
No, that's the difference.
Holy moly, it's crazy.
You go to a big dental show in the U.S., even when it's busy, there's just not many people there. I mean, people don't go to dental shows so much in here. That's the amazing thing about the IDS show is it's crowded. It's like the Minnesota State Fair on a busy day. I mean, it's hard to even walk down the aisles, right?
It's so over 100,000 dentists.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's fantastic.
And it's so cool because you're standing at a booth and you're hearing 10 different languages around you. God, it's like going to dental heaven. Yeah, and it's only every other year.
Very cool.
So, you just said something about meetings. A lot of meeting planners, Hinman, Yankee, CDA, they say attendance has been drifting down over the years. Do you see that?
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you have any hard numbers like over a decade ago, or?
I don't have them in front of me, but we track that, and how.
But you say meetings are getting smaller.
Yeah, how many leads we get, and I think it's back to kind of what you commented on earlier. It used to be you went to the dental shows to do a couple things. One is to learn about what's new from the manufacturers, and then get deals, I suppose, if you were going to buy product at the trade show, at least from my standpoint. Of course, you'd go to lectures and things and learn as well. But you don't need to do either of those things if you don't want to, right? There's so many other venues where you can learn, whether online or other study groups and all those kinds of things. So that happens. And then through our channel partners and other ways in terms of get deals and bargains on product, you don't really need to go to the show to get those deals either. So I think it's
very expensive for you guys because Dental Town always has our little podunk town booth, and I just look at how much space you guys got. Yeah. That's a fortune.
Yeah, it's expensive to exhibit at a trade show.
You promised me an hour of your time. You're the top dog at 3M and Dental. Can I keep you and go into some little overtime?
Sure, absolutely.
So let me tell you how old and senile I am. I've been using 3M Empergum, not since I graduated in 87. I use it in dental school. And all these people always try to tell me, well, you should try a Vitamin Polysiloxane, or why don't you scan the impression? Like, dude, this works perfectly. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of, why am I going to fix broken? And my, so number one, am I the oldest Empergum user on earth who's used it nonstop for at least 34 years? What's the future of Empergum? And do you see a good reason to switch from a polyether to a polyvinyl? You got so many different polyvinyl impressions, or now you got digital scanners. You got the TrueDepth scanner, and everybody says you should scan your impression. I'm like, this has worked for 30 years. So school me on. Am I going to use this stuff till I die?
I hope so. So we love Empergum. I mean, I wished everybody would use it. In fact, everybody should use Empergum. How's that?
Your lab man will agree. Just call your lab man and ask him.
I mean, it is a great product, and I believe it or not, the geniuses and the smart folks over in Seefeld, Germany, where we make it, are still working on it. I mean, we're developing more versions upgrades, different, tweaking that technology. So in 2018, look for more from Improgum. Now, the other things you said, of course, I mean, when I think about the dental business, and you commented, there's so much diversity in terms of opinions about what people like to use. So, of course, there's other impressioning materials, and there's scanners, and I don't know that one's better than another, but for sure, Improgum has got that history, and it's just an inherently amazing material, because it's inherently hydrophilic in terms of how it works. Is why it can get into all those nooks and crannies, especially when things are a bit juicy if you're taking an impression. So it works great.
So is that's the last area we didn't talk about. I mean, one of the biggest changes when you and I started in '84, there were 15,000 dental labs. Now that's cut in half. There's no more 1- and 2-man shops.
Right.
Now it's down to 7,500, but all the fast growth is in like the top 200 labs.
Right.
Are they telling you dentists are going towards digital? I mean, you have a digital scanner. Is that, when was that zero? When did it hit 1%? Where's it at?
I think it's at about 10 to 15% of penetration in terms of people doing scans and chairside mills and all the rest.
Okay, so any digital.
But I think that's the interesting part is, kind of going back a ways. And again, you don't have to go back too far. It's, well, labs are going to go away, right? All labs are going to go away because we're all going to... No, that's not happening. The interesting part, the labs are embracing digital more than anybody else. I mean, every lab that's still around has probably embraced digital, right? All their internal processes are digital workflows. So, if you send a traditional impression, chances are they're going to take a scan of that impression, and the rest of the workflow is going to be digital in the lab. So labs are incredibly, I find, kind of proactive and very innovative in terms of how they're adopting digital workflow technologies, which I think it's actually going to kind of go to the lab and then maybe bounce back a little bit into more chairside. Same with 3D printing. I mean, that's a whole very, very exciting area, doing all kinds of neat stuff. I mean, chances are any dental or orthodontic lab you're going to walk into is going to have rows and rows and rows.
That's my retirement plan. My whole retirement plan, it's all based on, I'm going to get a 3D printer to print itself and just keep making itself, and I'll just start selling them out the front door.
I don't think we're too far from that, honestly. And it's another one of these areas where the technology, it's moving so fast, it just makes you grin when you see
Do you think Elon Musk is correct that if we allow artificial intelligence into drones and robots, that they will take over, and all humans would have been is the merge between biology and drones?
Oh gosh, I mean,
they're serious. They're seriously scared about this.
Yeah, I don't, view that as quite as dark as he does. I mean, I'll say, but it is. I mean, even in the last couple of years, this stuff has really gone.
I hope those drones get sophisticated, because if I ever get remarried, it's going to be to a drone. I'm not marrying a human. It has to be a perfect, gorgeous, smart drone.
That's funny.
And then I'll have a remote control, just turn it off. But hey, it is just it was a huge honor that you would take your time. You're the busiest man in dentistry, and you took the time to come by my house.
It's my great pleasure.
But I want to end on my final question. Sometimes they're driving to work and they get blue, and they say, man, I spent 8 years, I graduated $250,000 of student loans, it's gone from indemnity insurance to PPOs, and now there's corporate dentistry. And sometimes she emails me between 25 and 30, says, Howard, do you think I made a bad decision becoming a dentist?
Yeah.
What would you tell her? What would you tell the graduating class of dental kindergartners?
No, this will be very sincere on my part. One of the things that I just love about this business, and that I think is underappreciated, is, and this will sound like I'm pandering, I'm not, is the difference you make in people's lives. I get goosebumps, I get a rush thinking about it. I mean, if you have a bad day or whatever, and I know not all dental procedures are pleasurable for the patient and all the rest, but it really changes people's lives. I'll give you two, if you got time, just two quick examples. I mean, I was visiting a dentist that had an interesting procedure, and he was talking about what he's doing, and this was on a Friday. A patient was so chuffed, so happy about the job. This totally changed this person's life, that they took off work, came into the office, just so I could stare at their teeth and see the work the dentist did. I mean, this person was gushing. They went on and on about how thrilled they were, how happy they were about this work. You know, and I'm just in awe. I mean, I'm thinking, imagine you had, I mean, I could work all day long. I'm not going to have that profound effect on anybody's life. So I don't get that buzz of being able to just really make that kind of difference in somebody's life. And I had a similar experience talking to an orthodontist who, again, similar thing, you know, a young kid, you know, a bad class 2 malocclusion type thing, and the kid, you know, just kind of kid who would get picked on in school just because he looked kind of funny. And, you know, the orthodontist telling me the story about how she treated this kid, and she shows me a picture, you know, a few years later, and this kid's a, you know, young, strapping, handsome teenager who had his life changed. I mean, by the work this person was able to do. I mean, that's just something that you're so fortunate to be in a position to make that kind of impact. That's what makes me jealous of the profession.
And you know, one of the things, if you really want to get big clarity on things, number one, you know, get out of your own tribe, travel, you know, go spend a day in a dental office in Somalia, Ethiopia. My favorite dental office, I was staying in Cambodia. Ryan, what was that big religious place in Cambodia? Angkor. I mean, I didn't even know it existed, and we drove all the way there. It was about a 6-hour drive. It'd be like driving from Phoenix to the Grand Canyon and stopping at dental offices. But when people say, oh, well, my patients here in America, they don't have the money for dentistry, they don't have the money for dentistry, go walk up to any girl in any country of the world today and say, how much money would I have to give you to pull your front tooth, give it to me, and go the rest of your life without your front tooth? 100%. Oh, my God. I said, well, obviously you do it for $1 million. No way. It's like you chose a profession where people won't give you their front tooth for $1 million. Well, they're sitting there saying, you know, and same thing with that girl dental student. I say, well, if the $250,000 student loans bothers you so much, I'll tell you what, I'll pay off your student loans if you extract your front tooth, give it to me, go the rest of your life without it. And then they start laughing. I mean, if someone came up to me, think of how many products in your house. That if someone said, hey, I'll give you $1 million if you give me your iPhone, and never have an iPhone, they're like, dude, it's all yours. But they won't give you their front tooth. No. So there's, and that's where dentistry is different than medicine. Dentistry is half beauty, ear, mani-pedi, hair extensions, beauty, and half of it's health. And there lies the most romantic connection of dentistry. People don't care if you take out their gallbladder and throw it away. But you go take out their front teeth and throw them away?
Yeah.
Or, you know, like an appendix. They're like, well, I'd had my appendix taken out. No big deal. I say, what about take all your teeth out? Oh, my God.
Yeah, exactly.
I go up to girls and I say, and here's another weird thing about dentistry and that romance. Go into any room full of women and say, raise your hand if you've ever had a dream that all your teeth fell out. All the girls raise their hand.
Really?
And there's even psychiatric papers on it written by PhDs and MDs, and only about 10 or 15% of boys will say that. But all the girls have had a nightmare of losing their teeth.
Wow. By
By age 40, I read a PhD deal where I think it was like 98% of girls by age 40 have had that nightmare. None of them will give you their tooth, even if they're in the poor. I mean, I've been in Somalia, Ethiopia, Tanzania. The poorest girl in the village wouldn't take 10,000 U.S. cash to pull her front tooth.
Right, yeah.
And she has no running water electricity. So you pick the best profession in the world, and you'll never master it. All you can do is practice it. And they say practice makes perfect, but it doesn't in dentistry. You'll never master dentistry. It's greater than all of us. And it was just a huge honor that you came by to talk to my
Thank you
homies.
very much. My pleasure as well.